What is good, y'all? It's your boy Jones, and welcome to another episode of Jnfs Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jones, and with us today we have a special guest, close friend of mine, and some of you guys might have heard of him already, Sam from Till the Whistle Blows Podcast. Welcome to Jnfs Sports Podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me, Sean.
Appreciate it. I know me and you have been talking offline about sports nonstop. I've been on your podcast as well.
Of course.
But first, I want you to, plug your podcast and let people know what you do with your podcast and your friends.
Yeah, let's do it. So we got Till the Whistle Blows Podcast. We are just coming up. We're coming back from a little break we took. We're doing season 2 premiere on Saturday. We'll be going a little crazy about that. And even without the podcast, though, we have our own Twitch stream called Dudes on a Couch. Play games, any kind of game, even sports. Come swing by. It's always a good time. Twitch.tv/dudes_on-a-couch.
Nice. So listeners, definitely go check that out. I've already been on a few, and these guys are the real deal. So definitely want to tune in with those guys, Dudes on the Couch, Until the Whistle Blows Podcast. You guys will be seeing those tags on the link to this podcast when it comes out. So we're going to talk about some football and we're going to talk about basketball, but we're going to start with basketball because it did just come back. First, I want to hear your thoughts on the All-Star break. What did you think about how everything played out? Everything was all within one day. They had the skills challenge, 3-point contest, and then the dunk contest at halftime during the All-Star game. What did you think how it all played out?
So I thought it was good that they were able to still do it. It felt a little more rushed because, All-Star Saturday always felt like it was like this huge event. It gave more time for more players, and it gave more opportunities for people who didn't make the All-Star game to still kind of come over and have some fun as well.
Right.
So I do appreciate that they still did it. It's a little upsetting, though, that they didn't get to invite all the players that, they could have easily had. I know for the dunk contest, they brought in 3 random players, it kind of felt like. But I thought it was still a good time. They definitely seemed like they were having a little fun. When it comes to the 3-point contest, though, it definitely was very unfair with having Steph Curry be part of that because he was untucked. He kind of pulled a Larry Bird where he didn't really get set up to do it, and he just kind of still won.
Right. He walked in there knowing that he would be first and someone would come out second.
Yeah, he came really ready to roll.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. What did you think about the game itself?
The game itself has definitely lost the competition aspect now. I feel like with LeBron not even playing the entire game, he played maybe 13 minutes. I feel like the game now is definitely just kind of a thing they do. It's not like last year you kind of felt the passion it was. I get it was for Kobe, but they didn't bring that passion this year, it felt like. And it just kind of felt like Team LeBron was just steamrolling through it since they had Curry and Lillard just shooting from half court at that point.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It wasn't as competitive as last year. Last year was probably the best All-Star game I've ever seen because, like you said, how competitive it was. And, I thought it would have been more competitive this year as well based off of, the incentive of raising money for, HBCUs and stuff like that. So guys were definitely playing hard, and both teams still got money from it. But
it was nice. I thought, Team Durant would have wanted to show up a little bit, to make some money for them.
Absolutely. They didn't win not one quarter, which was surprising to me. I thought they'd win at least 2, but that's not how it happened. And Team LeBron steamrolled it. And I kind of thought that would possibly happen because Team LeBron, his team was just stacked, and
he had all the shooters, but KD was trying to play for his teammates.
Right. Plus, he had 2 of his teammates go down. But Joel Embiid go down.
He had Joel Embiid due to contact tracing, but he also it felt more like he was trying to pick his friend. He was picking people that he wanted on his team because he picked Kyrie and James Harden because that's his teammates.
Exactly. So you can definitely see that there was a little bit of bias in there.
Absolutely.
But I just wanted to say that show that Curry and Dame put on was amazing.
That was the only reason to watch that All-Star game.
Absolutely. There was threes nonstop, but those two were putting on a show from half court. So that was definitely the highlight of it, and it was fun to watch.
It really was.
But now that we get into the second half of the season, let's talk about what's going on in these two conferences. Let's start off with the East. Eastern Conference. I must say, actually, before I go into that, I definitely want to shout out the NBA for such a great job of what they did with showing how much support they were doing for the HBCU communities, schools and colleges and stuff like that, and celebrating Black history and all that. I thought that they did a fabulous job with their display of that. So definitely want to take my hat out for them for doing that. Two, the season. We talk about the season, Eastern Conference. The East, it looks very weak. I mean, it always looks weak, but this year it looks even more weak because you only have 5 teams over 500. So that's not really a good look.
No, and you know what? Even without making 500, you could still make the playoffs. Like I'm looking at the standings here. Like,
absolutely.
Hornets and you got the Raptors both sitting below 500.
Right. That's my point, though, is that when you have teams that are in the playoffs with a below 500 record, it's not always good for basketball. It's good for that conference.
It's not, unfortunately.
And that's why
each league seems to have that issue since the Washington football team just made it below 500 as well in the playoffs and almost won a game.
No, it's. I'm not saying it's bad. I mean, it is bad when it's a lot because you got to think about it. In the NFL, that was one conference that really had that problem.
That was a whole division that kind of went down.
One division pretty much. So, but in the NBA, it's a lot of teams, and it doesn't look that good when. Not saying that they're not capable of winning, but we know that in the NBA, the hierarchies are more likely to win than the teams in the lower tier of the playoffs.
Absolutely. So, you really don't see those low seeds kind of coming in anymore.
Right. It's very rare that you see it, but it's definitely not impossible. It definitely can happen. We see in the Miami Heat who no one saw them reaching the finals last year.
Yeah, they were swept down last year. I mean, the only one I can really remember in past years was the Golden State Warriors when they beat the Mavericks to move on to the next round.
Mm-hmm. Right. And another team, the Memphis Grizzlies, when Conley was there, Randolph was there, Gasol was there, and they knocked off the number 1 Spurs that year and actually went to the Western Conference Finals that year. I think that was 2008 or something like that.
With grit and grind Grizzlies.
Mm-hmm, yeah, that was a beast team. But yeah, we don't see it that often anymore. So, but yeah, so out of the East, what team has surprised you the most?
The team that's surprised me the most is the New York Knicks.
Love it.
I projected them really to go nowhere when the season started, and they're sitting in a 5 seed, and they're actually above 500 with an all-star in Julius Randle, who's kind of having a bit of a resurgence right here with the Knicks.
Yep. Absolutely. I love what the Knicks are doing. Big Knick fan. Just haven't been able to support them because they've sucked. I don't really like sports teams that suck.
You can't support them so much. It's been a rough outing for them, but they seem to be taking like that huge step right now because they are above some good competition here too.
Absolutely, and shout out to Tom Thibodeau for what he's been able to do with that team, especially on the defensive side. They're top 5,
top 10, and Tom Thibodeau has his favorite player in Derrick Rose.
Derrick Rose. He knew he had to get Derrick Rose because Derrick Rose loves to play for him. He plays hard.
He does. I mean, we saw it in Chicago. We saw it in Minnesota. And now we're seeing it here in New York.
Absolutely. And, I want to shout out that the rookie quickly, he's been amazing off the bench. He's an amazing shooter. He's fiery. He brings energy. That whole team is just looking.
They're looking much better because they're not like these old guys anymore. They're a bunch of nice little young players. Exactly. They've got some like veteran presence there.
Yep, I'm loving what the Knicks are doing.
And finally,
what about a team that isn't doing so well that you thought would be doing a lot better at this point?
If we're sticking with the East, I want to say the Washington Wizards. Actually, it's gonna be a tie. Washington Wizards and the Indiana Pacers. I get the Pacers lost Oladipo, but you still have like a good team kind of around there. So I'm kind of shocked to see them fall. Praying out to Karis LeVert. I know he has to sit out right now due to issue they found with his kidney.
Right.
So that's unfortunate. But like you still have like Miles Turner, you have, TJ Warren, you got Jeremy Lamb here, and you got Sabonis. So I thought they'd be doing a little better. I know the loss of Oladipo is definitely hurting them, so that can't be good.
Yep.
But when it comes to the Wizard, you brought in Russell Westbrook, who I kind of thought might be a little better than John Wall at this point, and you paired him with Bradley Beal. I thought this dynamic duo would be much better than what they're doing now.
Yeah, I totally agree. I thought Washington would be, in that 8-9 spot by now. But another team that surprised, and I like your point with the Pacers, because the Pacers the past 2-3 seasons have been quietly sitting at 4 in the Eastern Conference for the past 2 seasons, and no one's even noticed. And now they're sitting outside the playoff picture at 16 and 19. So, like you said, every point you made was correct. Even without their star player, you would think
they could have made it, but honestly, the Pacers are one of those teams. Unfortunately, they can make it to the first round, but they never really got past that step, even with like Paul George or even with Victor Oladipo.
Right, and just to be fair to them, they're only one game behind outside of the 8th seed.
They are.
They're not far.
I can't give them too much credit. I mean, they're behind like a resurging Chicago Bulls that kind of came out of nowhere. A Toronto Raptors team that's been stripped from that 2018 championship victory, and a young Charlotte Hornets, who I'm actually I wasn't expecting them to be this high up. I know LaMelo's like balling out as much as he can, but fortunately, that's not really much of a roster around him.
Right, exactly. So I'm shocked about that too. But the team that shocked me the most out of all these teams that I thought would be in a much higher place was the Atlanta Hawks. I thought they would be in a lot better position based off of what they've been doing the past few seasons. You can see the growth in Trae Young and those other young guys, and adding guys like Rondo. I think they added another piece that was pretty
good. They got Bogdanovich.
But there you go, Bogdanovich. I know I'm not sure if he has been able to play much, but I thought that team would be in a much better place than
I thought that too, but unfortunately, they're also kind of the Hornets, where they're a little bit of a younger team though, because like Trae Young's only 22, Kevin Huerter's 22, and you're like your big three here with DeAndre Hunter, he's 23, and then Cam Reddish. Like they're still a very young, developing team. So this team, I think, not this like maybe in the next like few years, you'll see them kind of make that next step, especially if they can keep Clint Capella as like the main defensive player there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I just thought, based off of the fact that those guys have been together for the past two seasons, this could have been the
big one here. But I think just give them like a little more time to marinate. I feel like, and I think they'll be doing well. Like Trae Young is learning from Rondo right now, and I think that's a great pairing to learn from.
Yeah, definitely. And I thought that would be what they needed to get up there, but fortunately, that is not the case. Sticking with the East, what do you think about the number 1 seeded 76ers?
So
did you think they'd be here at this point?
They're going to fall down from grace a little bit with Simmons and Embiid, since they still have to sit out for probably a good 2 weeks. So they're definitely going to go down, but they're not going to pop out. They're probably going to go to a 4th seed, and I have a feeling that either the Nets or the Bucks will take over that number 1 seed and run away with it. So I don't see the 76ers coming back from this little COVID scare they're going through.
And what do you think about Joel Embiid, how he's been playing?
He's been playing amazing, shockingly. I thought this was going to be a bad year for these guys. I thought chemistry-wise, after that playoff loss, would have been a little rough for them. But they're definitely turning it around. They still have a good group around them. They did get that Dwight Howard earlier in the year, and I think Dwight Howard's been very well holding it for Joel when he needs those breathers.
Yeah, definitely, no question. And then the Nets. What do you think? You didn't just point out that you thought they would be at the number 1 spot. What do you think about
this? Is definitely going to still be like a big 3 show. I know Blake Griffin's coming in to help, but he's not his form that he was with the Clippers, and he definitely he kind of fell off a cliff when he got traded to the Pistons. So I don't think he's his top tier, but I think he'll still be like a kind of a solid role player for this Nets team here. So they're going to have to come against the Giannis-led Bucks here. And the question is, do they have a player on that team that can stop Giannis is the big one.
Very true. And that will be the big question. But we know what happens with the Bucks and
They're going to falter in the
in
second
the
round of the playoffs, and we're going to see probably Nets
right.
Sixers or Nets Celtics and be Eastern Conference Finals.
Exactly. Yep. So now let's move over to the West. You got the surprising, to me at least, the surprising number one seed, Utah Jazz. What do you think about them right
Utah
now?
definitely, honestly, after Rudy Gobert and what he kind of pulled with them last year, I thought Donovan Mitchell would be a little upset, but it turns out we were all wrong about that. Where their chemistry seems to be really skyrocketing here, and they have solid pieces around them with Mike Conley, who just made his first All-Star game in 14 years. They have Jordan Clarkson, who's helping Cleveland, but now is on a real team here. Like, they definitely got some good pieces around them, and just seeing them play the way they're doing under the coach of Quinn Snyder, it's been very like crazy to see. And like, no, I never thought like they'd be a number one seed. I always thought they'd be like a 4 or 5 seed. About that,
Right. Yeah, no, same with me. But just watching them play, they play by far, to me, watching them, they play the best team
they really do.
basketball. They
They're kind
pass
of
the
reminding me
ball.
of like the Atlanta Hawks from a few years ago, or even the Spurs.
Right. Yeah, I think the Spurs is a great
Yeah.
analogy. They move the ball well. They find the best shot, and that doesn't always mean Donovan Mitchell, who is their best player. So that Coach Snyder has got that team chemistry at the top right now. So shout out to the Jazz, but I agree with you. I don't think they're going to sit
They
at that
definitely are
number
going to
one
probably fall,
seed.
but even the team below them in the second seed is also a big shock. The Phoenix Suns right now, who I never would have thought adding Chris Paul would have made this much of a change for them.
Right, I didn't think they would be sitting at number 2, but I definitely thought
Make the
they would
playoffs,
be
but like
top
not
5.
like a 2 seed, but like apparently adding Chris Paul is like the veteran leader they needed here. Like Devin Booker, he's a great player, but he definitely wasn't ready to lead this team the way you'd think it.
Yeah, no. When you add a guy like Chris Paul, we've seen what he's able to do whenever he gets on a new team. Especially last year with an OKC team that no one thought would make the playoffs. And yet not only did they make the playoffs, but they pushed Houston to Game 7 and almost won that. And that's all because of what Chris Paul was able to do with those young guys, have them believing in themselves, that even though no one believes in them, that if you believe in yourself and you play the game the right way, good things are going to happen. That's what he's doing with this Phoenix team. We saw what that Phoenix team was able to do in the bubble, went undefeated, still wasn't able to make the playoffs, but that was, their own fault for not doing well before then. But now you add Chris Paul, a veteran in this league, and now they're really starting to reach their potential. So I think this Phoenix Suns team is going to be a team to definitely watch out for when it comes to
they are going to be dangerous.
Absolutely. Then you move on to number 3, the Los Angeles Lakers, who is my team right now because of LeBron James. Sitting at 3 without AD, had a little bit of a rough patch before the break. Lost Schroeder for a few games, but he's back. What are you thinking about that defending champs?
The defending champs, if they really, really want to be serious this year, they're going to need to get another big man, because that's what was able to help them last year. They had AD, they had Dwight Howard, they had JaVale McGee. Now that AD's gone, you have Montrezl Harrell, who's a great 6-man, but I don't think he's like starting center potential. And you have Marc Gasol, who does not play defense the way that AD plays defense. They really need to go out there before the trade deadline, and they need to get like a good backup center or just another big man to help AD while he's out.
Absolutely, I agree 100%. They need a big man. I really wish they would have kept, Dwight or
keep one of them, and they would have been fine. But they let him walk. And that's where we are.
Gasol is not the answer. He's a well-respected vet in this league, and he was able to do great things for so many teams, especially the Raptors, who he helped bring a championship to. But those days, I think, are past him. And he's just not that same. He can. Everyone keeps talking about his passing. His passing is amazing, but that's not what we need out of him. We need defense, real dominant defense, and some playmaking as far as putting the ball in the bucket. You can't score. We need a little bit of scoring as well. So we're going to need that. And, the Lakers that front office is definitely going to need to find a big free agent so they can keep this run going for them, because we still got to find out how long AD's
They
going to be
need
out.
a replacement, and I'm sorry to say, but they might go after Boogie Cousins because I know he's still sitting in free agency.
I wouldn't be mad at it. I think at least he would give us some type of energy. We know we don't need, the AD from Sacramento days, but
Boogie.
Boogie from
Honestly,
Sacramento days.
if I was the Lakers and I saw what the Spurs did with LaMarcus Aldridge, I'd go get LaMarcus Aldridge.
That's another one. I was just thinking about him. LaMarcus Aldridge, I think he would be perfect because he can still play. He can still play, and I think he can give you everything that the Lakers need on both sides.
Absolutely. Of the ball. And I think it was the Spurs understood what they were doing, and they said they didn't want to torture LaMarcus anymore with that. So,
right. So, Lakers, go get him. Go get him, Lakers. I think he's the top one that they should go for. Who else should we talk about?
Well, I'd like to talk about a big disappointment I'm seeing here, because I thought, honestly, I kind of gave them a little credit here, but they're the same basement dweller they always are. The Minnesota Timberwolves. I honestly thought this team could have snuck into the playoffs by getting Anthony Edwards, because I thought he was going to be a great pickup for this team. Like, make a nice trio of, Anthony Edwards, D'Angelo Russell, and Karl Anthony Towns. I thought this could have done well for them, but they're just not showing up here. And this Timberwolves team has just been such a disappointment ever since they let KG leave for Boston Celtics, because they just never do anything, this team.
Yeah, they definitely don't. I'm not surprised that they suck, but I am surprised that they're this bad. I didn't expect them to be last. I thought they would be, sitting above the Kings or OKC. But other than that, I didn't think Anthony Edwards would be enough for them to make the playoffs.
No,
definitely not.
That just kind of would have given him a little push, number one pick. Anthony Edwards is a great talent. And, I thought they'd do more than 7 wins.
Yeah, no, 7 wins is pathetic. I'm shocked.
Yeah, that's kind of a disappointment for me. And then the Pelicans too. Like they have this young team that I feel like could be doing a little better.
Definitely the Pelicans. That was the team that shocked me the most, because we saw what they were able to do last year, and that was with a lot of injuries, and they were very close to making the playoffs. And now they're fully healthy.
And they're not doing anything
with a young team. And they're not doing anything. You got Zion, who's killing in the paint, can't be stopped. Ingram, who's still he took maybe a little bit of a step back from last year, but this team was supposed to take that next gear and be in the playoffs. And right now it doesn't look like that is going to be the case, because you still got the Warriors, who were just in the playoffs. They're tied, actually. No, they're a few games back. Games behind
them. It looks like you're crazy to
right. See. But they have the same record as Dallas, and then you got Memphis. So the Warriors, shout out to the Warriors. They're doing their job with Steph still being Steph and keeping that team afloat. That was definitely a team that I was going to look out for. But then Clay got injured.
If Klay Thompson didn't get hurt before the season, this team probably would have been my pick to be number 1 seed.
I'm going to go that far.
We've seen Steph, Clay, and Draymond win much more without Kevin Durant here, and I think
no, absolutely. But that you got to think about the team that they had at that time. They had a lot of great veterans
there
right
with,
now.
Iguodala.
Yeah, right. They had a lot of good vets at that time that could still play. At this point, they have, they still got Steph and Clay and Draymond, but those young guys are still on that learning curve where they're still learning.
Wiseman is definitely still learning here.
Still learning, but he has a lot of potential. I think he's going to be something. The Warriors are a team to look out. Definitely,
they definitely will probably make a resurgence here in the second half, hopefully.
Absolutely. And then before we go, last thing that I wanted to talk about is the MVP. So I just wanted to give you some of the guys that I think are in the MVP race, which is you got LeBron, you got Embiid, you got Joker, you got Dame, Uh, who else? You can even throw in Chris Paul in there. You can throw in Mitchell because of where the Jazz are sitting at right now. Yeah. So out of those guys, who do you think deserves to be the MVP
if I had to
so
pick
far?
someone who I thought had to be the MVP, I'd probably go with Embiid at the moment. So unfortunately for Mitchell, we kind of touched about this earlier, but he's not really the star kind of key component here. He's definitely more of a he's a support character at the moment. Like he is their leading player, but they play so much team ball. I would call him MVP.
Right.
LeBron, unfortunately, yes, like he's always in the front running discussion, but I feel like Embiid is just like a little more for his team right now, with them sitting in the top of the seed right now of the conference, and LeBron sitting at 3 at the moment.
Right. For me, it's between LeBron and Embiid. I want to give it to LeBron. I mean, at this point, if it ended today, it would probably go to Embiid, but I'm going to give LeBron the edge only because he's doing it in a harder conference and he's doing it without his best player. So that's, and of course, you got to add, the dude's in his 18th year
like
at
that.
the age of 36.
Is like huge for him.
Still,
one guy who I kind of know is always getting under the radar, but I feel like he needs a little mention. Bradley Beal. He's leading the league in points, and he's trying to carry this Wizards team. And I wouldn't be shocked if some point they kind of discuss maybe him making some sort of award here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think so. He definitely deserves to be in there. Of what he's doing, and then another name that definitely he just doesn't get enough respect every year. But everyone knows how good he is, and that's Dame Lillard. He needs some respect. For him to be sitting at 5 without McCollum and Nurkic.
So those guys definitely need some respect on their names. They definitely need to get a bump up there.
Absolutely. Those guys are playing their hearts out, and all of them, everyone that we named deserves to be in that conversation.
Great players, those guys.
And I'm excited to see how this second half ends. So before we end, who do you think ends the season in the number 1 spot in both conferences?
Let's start with the Eastern Conference here. I think it'll probably be the Milwaukee Bucks, because I don't think anyone on that Nets team is going to be able to contain Giannis. And I think he's going to just kind of bully his way through Kyrie, Harden, and Durant. It's a very interesting spot. And for the Western Conference, I am going to say, let's see. I'm going to go a little crazy here because I want to say one, but it's be just too obvious. I think the Phoenix Suns will finish with the first seed. We'll give the Phoenix Suns.
I like that. Give them some love. I like that. I'm going to go in the East. I'll go with the Nets. I think they're just with all the firepower that they have. And if they're able to figure out the defensive side, if they figure out that defensive side, they're really going to be a team to reckon with, and probably be unstoppable in that East besides the Sixers, but who knows? And then in the West, if the Jazz can continue to play the way they're playing, I wouldn't be shocked if they stayed at that 1 spot. I also like that Phoenix Suns pick. Yeah. I think that's another one. I think I'm going to stick with the Jazz. I think the Jazz are going to stay at that number 1 spot. Maybe not throughout the continue of the season. They'll probably bump up and down and stuff like that. I think the Phoenix Suns back and forth in that 1 spot.